What is this? YTP? Oh, that is. Okay, I'll try it.
VPN. For a lot of people, the stock market can be a lucrative endeavor in which they earn interest on a portion of their savings each year. Just set aside a couple of grand, and if you've done your research, after a few years, watch it multiply.
Hold up.
Or get delisted and turn into dust. But for some, years are far too long to wait. Traders want their money today, and throw thousands of dollars into stocks, forex, and options to get it. On one side, you've got the retail traders, usually trading on the side of their main job. These guys are normally pretty sensible, clued up, and use a detailed series of charts and strategies to predict where stocks are headed. Then you've got the professionals, the institutional traders and bankers who have spent years studying markets and have access to Bloomberg terminals, walls of monitors, and millions of dollars. They spend hours charting and write full essays of due diligence before even thinking about going in. Cunning, careful, and calculated. Then there are the other traders.
Mentions of Microsoft's ticker on a popular subreddit that's dedicated to markets.
It was discovered on Reddit. You can think of this similar to a sort of video game hack.
You put down a little bit of a deposit on margin, and then you get infinite leverage.
Getting people to take more risk than they want to. Here's what these kids are doing, and they're psychopaths.
Wallstreetbets, an online message board so pungent with autism, its members make the Rain Man look like James Bond. By turning stock options from a hedging strategy into a glorified bet thread, people on the subreddit have managed to convert the entire stock market into their very own personal casino. Add that to zero commission brokerage apps available to everyone with a mobile phone, lock everyone in their house for months on end, and you've got an ungodly amount of people on board.
That's a lot of users, holy shit.
You start your career by signing up to Robinhood, a zero commission online brokerage, infamous for being absolutely terrible and breaking constantly. Oh, lost $20,000 because of a problem on our end? Here's $75 compensation. Despite its problems, it's still far better than Questrade. Robinhood's the bottom of the barrel of brokers, and as such, usually attracts likewise traders. But it just about works. Once you've signed up, it's usually best to read up on trading terms so you have a shred of an idea of what you're doing, but this stage is completely optional. Once you're on Robinhood, you're set. It's time to lose money. This usually starts by logging on to Wallstreetbets. The subreddit itself is home to a few things: bull posts, bear posts, gains, losses, but mainly, it's a bunch of shit posts and memes. Useful stock tips and actual thorough due diligence can occasionally be found, however. Once located, and after skim reading a few lines of it and glancing at some charts you've pretended to understand, it's time to go all in. The YOLO, the subreddit's signature move.
Wait, was that a bad word in the chat? I didn't see it. I didn't see it. What did it say? YOLO? I didn't see it.
Essentially, an investment of all of the...
Okay, well, I didn't have... did chat mods skim through this, please? Can anybody do a fast forward? See if we can get a screen on this.
Months on
mods,
and you've got an ungodly amount of people on board.
Of course, we're not gonna get banned.
The process is simple. You start your career by signing up to Robinhood.
Wait, what happened?
All of the cash in your account. Once the cash is on hand, it's time to suit up. The weapon of choice almost always being options on SPY, a fund that tracks the overall US market. What are stock options? Basically,
go past it. What's happening? Go past what?
an option to buy or sell a stock at a specified price. When you're buying a call option, you're basically paying a premium up front to bet that the value of a stock will rise to a certain price by a certain date. The further the price goes beyond your selected strike price, the more your call's worth. But if it doesn't hit your strike price by the expiry date, you're not paying this month's rent. Puts are the same thing, but they're generally for when you think stocks are going to fall. If an option hits your strike price or more, you can exercise them to buy or sell the shares, or sell the options on at any time before the expiry. Now, the nature of options allow for a huge potential and upside, banking numerous people up to 10 times their investment.
Jeez.
But also losing others all of it. There have been a few tragic losses, but even for those that lose everything on Wallstreetbets, There's almost always another portion of Grandma's pension up for grabs to head straight back in. It's 2012, and after being exiled from r/investing for constantly pumping risky trading ideas, Reddit user u/jartech decides to make a subreddit of his own, and on January 31st, Wallstreetbets goes live. It's not long before the subreddit adopts a 4chan-like etiquette of calling each other
chat, is there anyone in chat that can click the link and go through it and see if there's any TOS material in it?
retards and autists, and casual mentions of cuckoldry are everywhere. It's also not long before people on the subreddit start playing around with options and penny stocks. The trades start out pretty tame, but this doesn't last for long. It's also worth mentioning that everyone on the subreddit was relatively competent with stocks and had some idea of what they were doing.
6:30?
Until 2015, around the time when Robinhood starts to gain some traction. From there, it's not long before they find Wallstreetbets. The subreddit hits 10,000 members, and the slow influx of Robinhood traders begins. Naturally, the quality of posts on the subreddit take a hit. In late 2016, this influx only accelerates as Wallstreetbets starts to leak onto r/all, growing the sub to around 50k by mid-year. By this point, many of the original members had had enough, and left the subreddit for good.
Just skip 6:30.
Numerous events unfold over the next few years, with users like Wallstreetbets God appearing, claiming to have made $8 million from 43,000. Someone makes $110,000 completely by accident. Martin Shkreli becomes a mod. But by 2019, the sub had grown to 700,000 members, and the autism was cranked up to 100.
Well, chat, it's not it's a bad word. I really can't have it.
It's mid-January 2019, and Reddit user IronyMan decides to stray from the subreddit's proven strategies. He's still trading options, but this wasn't your usual options trade. This was a box spread, a highly complicated strategy that involved both buying and selling equal amounts of options at the same expiry and strike price, and profiting by taking advantage of pricing and charges. Bingo.
Okay, chat, it's one video. I'll put it on the whole thing.
Time to go in. Now IronyMan only has $5,000 in his account,
15.
but by trading these box spreads, he manages to take on around $300,000 worth of margin. That's a leverage of 60 to 1. Now obviously, this should not be possible, but IronyMan's strategy was so autistic that not even Robinhood's risk management knew it could be done. He'd also worked out that the box spreads were completely risk-free, meaning he had no money at risk. If those options remained unexercised, in 2 years, he'd make around $40,000. He goes on Wallstreetbets and shows everyone the results. Immediately realising the inherent risk, people tell him not to go through with it, that there was risk involved, that he was completely retarded. But IronyMan had run the maths. He had no money at risk. It literally could not go tits up. Until people started exercising them. See, IronyMan thought that for every call he sold being exercised, he could exercise a call he purchased, meaning a loss of only $500 per spread. But here's the thing, he sold 500 spreads. On the same day he opened the spreads, buyers began exercising them. So many in fact, that IronyMan had to close 283 spreads in one day. Naturally, his margin called for a shit ton of money he doesn't even have. $60,000 down and minus 2,000% later, Robinhood actually realised what was going on and closed IronyMan's account instantly. Box spreads were removed from the platform in a matter of hours. So overall, not a great week for IronyMan. But it turned out that before things went tits up, IronyMan withdrew $10,000 of the initial profit from his Robinhood account, meaning that while losing Robinhood at least $60,000 and changing a major investment platform's rules forever, IronyMan had actually doubled his money. Before we go on, browsing. It's important. We do it pretty much every day. But what if people could see what we browse? Down to every last detail. Well, your internet service provider can, as well as any hacker sharing an unsecured internet connection with your device. All your precious info gone instantly.
Then it goes to collection.
Enter NordVPN. NordVPN encrypts your data at the source, meaning those spying eyes
Chat,
don't
this
have
I was
a
doing
chance.
Genshin Impact, and
It's
after that I was doing
simple. They
microphones.
give you a map,
Just
you
like
pick
that.
a country, and you're off the grid instantly.
Okay.
Australia, Italy, Mexico. Your internet could... 19-year-old student Anal Farmer 2 starts out on Wallstreetbets in 2018. His first post suggests he's new to trading, asking where he should YOLO his 5k, how not to be so retarded, and so on. Fast forward to July 2019, and he's a grizzled veteran. He's now got around $100,000 in his
shit.
Robinhood account, and he goes all in with it on short-term expiry calls on a company called Align Technologies. It goes well, and a day later, he bags $200,000 profit.
The fuck?
2 days later, and he heads back in. The market had gone up yesterday, so logically, tomorrow it was going to drop. He then YOLOs 170k on 0-day expiry SPY puts. These puts expire the next day, so naturally, they're high risk, high reward. On the same day he buys them, a rogue tweet from Donald Trump announcing a new wave of Chinese tariffs causes the market to nosedive, and he bags another 300k, making his account worth almost $700,000. Confident a market rally was on the cards for the day after, Anal Farmer 2 then put 600k of the profit he'd just made into another round of 0-day expiry options for tomorrow, but this time there were calls. He goes to bed. But when he wakes up, it's a hellscape, a sea of red. The market was down hard again, and his $600,000 was snapped out of existence instantly. He sold the calls on for 100k, leaving around 200k in his account. It was okay. He could make that 500k back with a few careful and strategic. Fast forward a week and it's down to $40,000. An investment of rope was tempting, but Anal Farmer 2 wasn't done just yet. Alright, one final YOLO. Just need to find the right stock. Ah, perfect. He spots an August 14th earnings report for Canopy Growth Corp and decides to put the entirety of his account on calls for it. He goes to bed. August 13th, one day before earnings. Anal Farmer 2 is currently up 8k. Things are looking good. He goes to bed again. He wakes up the next day again to a sea of red. Earnings was a complete disaster. However, Anal Farmer 2 is not selling for a loss and plans on sticking with the calls till the end. It's generally assumed that he lost the rest of his account that week. Having made and lost $700,000 in 3 weeks, Anal Farmer 2 decides to take a break from Wallstreetbets
Yeah, no
and hasn't
kidding.
been back much since.
No kidding.
A couple of months later, and a guy called Control the Narrative goes in. Straight off the bat, he borrows money via leverage through Robinhood and loses $30,000 on options for Microsoft's earnings
Wait.
report. He makes a
Chat,
Reddit
what is
post
that?
declaring the end to his trade.
Yo, Anonymous, the 50, you're crazy. They think that 50 cameras, man. You're crazy, man. Yeah, I wish we could tag you in a chat with a bunch of hearts and whatnot, but we can't see your name. You're Anonymous. But thanks so many times, man. I appreciate it, dude. Chat, I don't understand though, chat. You can borrow money from the web.
Microsoft's
What is
earnings
that?
report. He makes a Reddit post declaring the end to his trading career, and that was the end of it. Until he came back 3 days later. This time, he's only got $2,000, but there's a twist. Turns out there's a glitch on Robinhood, and it gives you infinite leverage. Multiple others use this glitch to borrow money in the millions, but Control the Narrative is sensible. He only borrows enough to meet his personal risk tolerance. $50,000. The loophole worked by applying for 2-to-1 leverage via Robinhood Gold, a monthly subscription service which requires a minimum of $2,000 in your account. Check. Because he has 2-to-1 leverage, he now has $4,000 buying power. Control the Narrative then buys 100 shares of AMD stock. He pays $3,200 for the shares, with almost half of that being leverage. He then goes to Robinhood's option market and sells AMD calls, turning over his 100 shares and receiving a premium of $3,200. He'd essentially laundered the leverage Robinhood had given him access to into a tangible cash balance in his account. And since he has Robinhood Gold, and his leverage is 2-to-1, he now has access to $8,000.
Hey, hell
Rinse
yeah.
and repeat until he hits $50,000, his personal risk tolerance. He then bets every single penny of that on Apple puts days before an earnings report, expecting bad news. Earnings day finally arrives and Tim Apple smiles as he uploads Apple's quarterly financials. Christ, they'd smashed it. Control the Narrative loses 25 times his entire account in an instant, prompting his soul to leave his body live on camera. It wasn't long before the leverage loophole was fixed. Robinhood would then go on to Wallstreetbets to clarify their policies on margin and state that anyone found abusing systems on Robinhood would have their account closed. They were banned from the subreddit instantly. But while Wallstreetbets was busy spreading the ashes of control the narrative, a few bears had spotted something brewing on the horizon.
More crashing.
February 2020. The Dow Jones Index is riding at an all-time high, and Wallstreetbets now has almost 900,000 members. At the same time, things were happening in China. They weren't good. A new coronavirus was springing up all over Wuhan, and it was spreading fast. China locked down the city and told everyone that everything was just fine. Turns out, it wasn't. Fast forward a few months, and almost the entire world has it, and it's still spreading. After infections start springing up in Europe and America, governments cave in one by one. Alright boys, time to close shop. Bears on Wallstreetbets had struck it big, and while infections continue to spread, bears were rubbing their hands together. These bets
what's a
began to
bear?
play nicely. And they did. In March, the US market fell by almost 30%, but the lockdown was expected to cripple the economy for years. Bears were certain the worst was yet to come, so the mission was simple. Load back up on puts and head straight back in.
Wait, so you bet against the market and people lose money, you make money.
COVID was getting worse, rent wasn't being paid, and unemployment numbers were skyrocketing. Once again, it literally could not go tits up.
What's up, Poke?
They hadn't taken into
Hey,
account.
what's up? Apparently some big new game comes out in an hour. Okay, we'll play it.
Account one thing, however. A booming market was Trump's golden ticket to a re-election in 2020, and he wasn't just going to let it slip into the gutter. And so began the pump. The head of the Federal Reserve, Jerome Powell, is tasked with keeping the stock market afloat, a feat that seemed almost impossible under the current circumstances. But then something incredible happened. By pressing a simple button, Jerome Powell discovered something fascinating. A real-life infinite money glitch, one that was yet to be patched. Turned out that the Fed has a money printer, and it printed money. The recession was cancelled instantly. In late February, the US government had pledged $2.5 billion to fight the coronavirus, but by mid-April, they'd burnt through more than $6 trillion. The Fed pledged a $2 trillion stimulus package, as well as announcing unlimited purchasing of government bonds. Emergency tendy packages of $1,200 were also deployed. The results were incredible. 40 million unemployed. The market's up. 100,000 dead worldwide. Priced in. Almost $1 trillion added to the national deficit in 1 month. SPY 300. By simply taping the print button down, J. Powell had ended the crash instantly, and the world's financial system was back to normal for good. And thank God for us, excessively printing money to counterbalance economic issues has never had unintended consequences.
Alright.
Bears were absolutely brutalised. Tens of thousands of puts, reduced to ash instantly. People on the subreddit would continue to remain bearish for a couple of months, but as things worsened, and the market kept rising, one by one, they fell.
Wait, how many
By
bits?
late May, it was over. Even with 40 million Americans unemployed, the Nasdaq had surpassed even the pre-crash peaks of late 2019. The Dow Jones Index wasn't far behind.
Chat, I have a question.
It was over. Even with...
What if you did the opposite? Instead of predicting that it was going to go down, it went up. You predicted that when it was going to go up. Do you pog?
40 million Americans unemployed, the Nasdaq had surpassed even the pre-crash peaks of late 2019. The Dow Jones Index wasn't far behind. The bears had lost.
That's unemployment.
It had been a rocky few months for the world in general, but things were finally improving. The economy had made a full recovery, the virus had completely gone, and the world was back to normal.
Jesus. Sure, man. Chat. That was alright. That was actually pretty good.